Previously on Break the Cycles. I left Maryland, went up on Mount Washington, and made it across the Canadian border in 7 days. And so far, I've done mostly couch surfing. The following day, we prepared to cross over to Canada. It was my first land border crossing, and it went pretty smoothly. But we did wait in line for a very long time on the bike baking. After we crossed, we did our first money exchange and headed to our couch surfing destination. And this is where a series of surprises started to happen. Me and Jeff arrived at the location only to find out that the couch surfer is in a trailer park. Now, this is not really an issue, but it wasn't advertised. The lady came out, showed us a trailer, and it was her second trailer. So this was kind of nice because it's kind of like we have our own cabin. And then she proceeded to tell us there is no water. That we have to shower with the bucket of water she already left in the bathroom for us. At that point, I looked at Jeff and I was ready to leave. But Jeff convinced me to stay because one, it was pretty late. And we thought we could just wing it and then leave at like 7 o'clock the next morning. So it's not end of the world. But as I was taking my boots off, there started a commotion outside the trailer. And then there started a lot of yelling. So the neighboring trailers people are yelling at our host because they thought that she was renting the place out, which is illegal. But she's not. She's doing couch surfing and she's just helping people out. So this got really heated. They started yelling at us, telling us to get out of here. And I looked at Jeff and I was like, I'm out. By then it was already 9 p.m. and Jeff was like, nah, I'm just going to stay. And I was like, no way, I'm going to stay. So I got on the app and I was super lucky. Trish and her family took me in last minute. I didn't get there until like 10 p.m., but it was a wonderful stay. Next day I met up with Jeff. Of course, he survived the trailer park. And we rode north and ended up in Manitoulin Island at a campsite by the lake. It was a really nice campsite. Next morning, I noticed that my aftermarket tank is rubbing against the bracket I made for the horn. So I ended up taking it apart, grounding down the bracket, and putting it all back together. We took off that day. The weather looked decent. But then we were hit by an isolated thunderstorm. And we had to take shelter at this hospital. And then we got on our way again. And then we got hit by another isolated thunderstorm. At one point, I had to take my boots off and dumped out like a whole liter of water. There was no way that any of our clothes would dry naturally, so especially our boots. So we ended up just booking a hotel and putting the boots in front of the AC, and you could tell it was magically sunny once we got to the hotel. The following day, we continued our trek up the coast. We actually wanted to go further, but we got to Sault Ste. Marie and it started raining again. And we found a spot real quick on iOverlander and we set up tent and ran into our tent. So yeah, this is like super wet right now. Bag of trail mix. Put my book bag. Something to eat. I got the water stuff in here. I wouldn't die of thirst, but not getting any better. What we didn't know was that it was a popular ATV and dirt bike spot. And after the rain ended, all these ATVs and dirt bike were blasting past our tent. So imagine sitting in your tent right after the rain, and then you hear all these things buzzing by your ears super loud with all these two strokes, and hoping that they see you and they don't just run you over because they like cutting through and didn't see you. Luckily, we survived, and the weather's starting to look better for the next morning, and then we're much more hopeful. I also discovered that my bottle of detergent exploded in my case overnight. It was such a mess. I had to clean that up. And as we got on our way, we stopped at Tim Hortons. My first time having Tim Hortons. And then We went to the birthplace of Winnie the Pooh, which was actually just outside of the place we camped. And then next we made it to this overlook in Nipigon where we met some people going to the Overland Expo. At the end of the day, we made it to Thunder Bay. And I stayed with this guy who was a photographer who taught me a few tricks of the trade. On day 13 was actually the last day me and Jeff rode together. We couldn't agree on a travel routine, and it was almost impossible to get people to host us on Couchsurfer with two people rather than one. People don't usually feel safe hosting two random guys on a motorbike. So the next day I took off on my own and crossed over to Manitoba. Canada has all these cool GPS coordinate signs. Here I stopped by at the middle of Canada sign. Eventually I made it to Winnipeg. I stayed with my host for 2 nights, changed the oil on my bike for the first time, and since he didn't have like an oil catch can, so I went to like the local grocery store and bought like one of those aluminum foil pans for baking, and then used that as a catch can for my oil change. The following day we had a very easy morning, and in the afternoon I rode around the city center of Winnipeg with the host, then helped them with some yard work at the new house that they just bought. The host actually recommended me a couch surfer for my next stop in Saskatoon, which I gladly accepted. The next day I left Winnipeg and headed towards Saskatoon. It was a terribly hot day. As I passed the border of Saskatchewan, 500 miles on a DR660 is a very, very long day. Now, I didn't arrive at the host's house in Saskatoon until it was well past dark. I didn't know what to expect, and I did not plan to stay for more than a night. The place was completely off-grid. But it might have been the most peaceful place I've ever stayed. I ended up staying 3 nights with Dr. Willow at his lake house. I did my laundry, uploaded my photos, and played quite a bit of chess with Dr. Willow. The next day, I left around 10 a.m. and crossed over to Alberta and ended the day in Edmonton. The lady I stayed with, when I arrived in the afternoon, had me go on a bicycle ride throughout the city for 4 hours. Needless to say, I was beyond exhausted. I left pretty early the next day and crossed over into British Columbia. I found a host just crossed the border at Dawson Creek. Yes, just like the show. I stayed for 2 days and made plans for next few days of travel, as I will be venturing into very rural areas once I get onto the Alaskan Highway. I tried a moose burger for the first time. The following day, I started on the Alaskan Highway. There was a very famous curved wooden bridge just outside of Dawson Creek. It was definitely worth the visit. Then I finished the first day into the wild at Fort Nelson. It was a very, very nice campsite. The next morning was very rainy, and I had to put all my rain gear on, and it was not a comfortable morning ride, but the view was spectacular.
And we're heading towards Whitehorse, which is still about 400 miles away. I don't think I'll make it there today. It was raining this morning, so it took me a while to get started. I didn't leave until like 10:30. And it was really cold, so I kept the speed down, so that I wasn't freezing to death. So it's going like 45, 50 miles an hour max. So that also didn't help. I didn't make that many miles today. I think I'm only at about 200 miles right now today. Look how beautiful this place is. But it's kind of chilly because there's fog and there's humidity in the air from the rain. So even though the temperature did not say that it was too cold, it is quite cold on the bike. You feel the bone chilling coldness on the bike. I had everything on except for my heated vest, but heated grips was on max. I had all my layers on except for the heated vest and the underlayer that I haven't used. I guess I'll be wearing that when I get into heading up to Puerto Bay. But no, it was very, very cold this morning. A very cold ride.
Then the amount of wildlife become more and more noticeable.
So, there is obviously a herd of buffalo in the front. And looks like I've been taking photos of just one or two. Make me feel kind of silly. Because there's like a billion of them in here. Like, holy crap, there's a lot in here. Whoa, there's a massive ones, big ones, little ones. So one is quite a bit on this side too. Oh, this one's just straight up sitting on the side of the road right here. And hanging out.
Finally, I arrived at Lear River, and it started to rain, so I began looking for a campsite. I didn't find anything on iOverlander that was closed, so when I crossed over this small bridge, I saw this road leading into the woods. I just took it. I went down the hill and into the forest and around this corner, and there's a few nice open spots, so I took the closest spot that I can find that was like the most enclosed, least likely to be spotted from the road. I set up my tent, ate some trail mix, brushed my tooth far away from camp, and then call it done. Next morning I wake up, I got out of the tent. It was very foggy and misty in the morning. I see a few buffaloes in the distance about 200 yards. So I packed my stuff kind of quietly and then left my campsite. As I was pulling onto the main road, going back up the hill that I came down on, I sensed something moving to the right of me. I didn't stop because I was actively going up this hill. And when I got up on the hill, I looked back down to my right and I see a large brown bear mauling at something like 100 yards away from where I came up. I almost shit my pants. And I took off faster than you can imagine. I didn't bring any bear box. I didn't bring any bear spray at all on this entire trip. And you might say, you are an idiot. And you are correct. So that day I made it all the way up to Quail Lake. This might be my favorite campsite so far. Open clearing, clear view of the mountains, cool breeze, and a stream running to the side of it. It really doesn't get prettier than this. Next time on Break the Cycles, we talk about how I cartwheeled a bike on the Dawson Highway.